and not interactive enough. So I think the biggest challenge in terms of learning and how to actually effectively apply learning principles, social learning isn't emphasized enough in most of these universities, as well as personalized learning. So what do we as individuals need to learn that's not just part of a prescribed curriculum, and how can we best play to each individual's abilities and their personal growth, not just as a whole.
Yeah.
So you kind of you said that was a big problem in Europe. Is that where your education, most of your education experiences, or?
So I spoke about American and European context. I was educated in my secondary and primary school, I was brought up in a British international school. So that's how that's most of my secondary context. But in higher education, right now we're in Minerva, so I think face this problem of lack of personalized learning. Although the interactivity I would say is a lot better than what I've been used to in my entire life.
Okay, so far we have, I guess, education is too prescriptive, and there's not enough social learning or student led learning type of thing. Anyone else have any big problems in education? What do you guys come up with?
I think building off of
okay, I guess I'll go next. So I guess mine was the skills gap between actually attending university and graduating and actually trying to find a job. So in other words, the education is so standardized that it's standardized to the point where employers have to literally provide a graduate program which effectively trains you to be employable. And I guess that was a big issue for me. So regardless of how you of how effective the learning is, the point of going to get education is to ultimately get a job. That's why it was reinvented in the Industrial Revolution, that sort of era. So that to me is a big problem. And I think that's reflected in how high the unemployment rates are for graduates as opposed to the overall economy. So that was my big problem.
So anyone have anything to add or respond to that? Just wave and all.
Yeah, I agree. I feel so much of education is so tailored towards the job market that it's almost not education anymore, right? It's all job training. And I feel like that's a huge issue in higher ed, is how do we make that balance between, creating a generation of people who are employable, but at the same time making a university experience a real university experience, right? Rather than just learn how to be a blank, which isn't even applicable anymore, right? Because, kids in 10 years' time will grow up to have jobs that don't exist, and, we will have a whole load of jobs that don't exist yet. And, so it seems kind of pointless to train people in that sense. So, I don't know. I'll save that for the solving challenges bit. Matt, did you have a point to make?
Yeah, I kind of want to disagree with you on one level, because earlier in the year, we were talking, a group of us at Minerva were talking with a recruiter from Goldman Sachs, and one of the things that they said to us, which just floored me, is that they expected their students to come out knowing absolutely nothing. They said that we are looking for the most pliable clay, and that we need no shape, no set of skills, and that the things that they look for is the ability to learn more so than any specific job tailoring. And they, of course, Goldman Sachs is recruiting directly out of top schools, Penn, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and so they're not finding terms with skills. They're not finding job-specific skills or practical skills. So I think kind of a middle ground is not so much saying that students aren't getting or are getting too much job training, is they're just, regardless, not getting enough, applicable skills on either side.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a really cool point. Does anybody have like a counterpoint to that?
Okay, Danielle, you're raising your hand. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry guys, I've had some trouble hearing you. The internet is cutting out a lot. But I can follow up on the last point, which I actually don't want to make a counterpoint to. I'd like to agree that one of the skills is personal finance, that you don't see it required anywhere, and it seems like it should be.
So right now, are we saying, on one hand, we're saying students in universities are being trained for skills. That's kind of what universities are for, and that's a problem. And then on the other hand, don't teach enough applicable skills. Is that kind of the conversation? Okay. So anyone have any input to that?
I think we need to make a.
Go ahead, Erica.
That I see in Georgetown a lot. We have different schools that kind of serve different purposes and I think embody different ideologies about what education is for. A student about the humanities is that are kind of the soft skills that you're learning, or you're learning how to write and you're learning how to be a thinker, but you're not necessarily learning a trade. And then we have things like and the business school, which are undergraduate, very extremely pre-professional schools that are kind of channeling students into these more concrete, like I'm a finance major, I'm going into investment banking type of roles. So I think there's also universities where people are interpreting the mission statement. That is also a problem because I meet students like at my own college who have completely different models of education and what purpose it serves.
I feel that one huge problem with that, going off of this point, is the schools and colleges don't have meeting points between the to be become very polarized in terms of what they think. Just to allow for flexibility in job paths and for creative thinking. And we can see in a lot of startups and companies like Apple, they're structured where a person working on business would have direct contact points with someone in a technical team, right? And it's just that their entire institutions are structured in a way that fosters these random and spontaneous meetings and collaboration points. And I don't think universities facilitate that enough with separating people so early into their career paths.
I actually have a really concrete example of that, where here at UCLA we actually have literally, there's one campus, but the students call it North Campus and South Campus. South Campus being all the engineering, math, STEMmy majors, and then North Campus being the humanities majors. And there's zero collaboration between them, and that is something that we see a lot at universities. Erica?
I think this also kind of happens on not just a student level, but also a faculty staff level also. I think there's this big call for interdisciplinary fields and kind of working across different fields. And I've noticed just, professors are very kind of this is my field, this is my discipline. And so I think that also kind of contributes to this idea that we're talking about, where not only are the students siloed, but also the way that the professors and administration work is they're all kind of siloed either in knowledge disciplines or the finances are such that, at our school, the fundings for the different colleges are coming in at different angles. So it's kind of a siloing of multiple things, I think, that has become really problematic and is disallowing what you're saying, Cindy, about those it's disallowing those connections to be made more easily.
So I have a couple of questions leading off from this. So we've said that kind of there's no real interdisciplinary fields in universities right now. They have the separate colleges. But I want to ask you guys, do the colleges even achieve what they want to achieve themselves. So like, is say the College of Engineering appropriately, teaching students to be engineers, or like, are they doing what they were meant to be well, even? And does anyone who hasn't spoken yet have anything to say to that? I guess I'm talking like in terms of like pedagogy or like how people are teaching us. Is that being done well right now at your university, or the way you see it?
Well, here at USC, we are a research-funded institution, and so oftentimes it's not really well, they don't really say it, but it's not necessarily about the teaching. It's more about the research and the grants that they're funneling through USC and the prestige that comes from publishing and being, internationally recognized for research. And so sometimes some of the professors, particularly I'm just speaking in the School of Education, can be a little bit distracted, I guess, when it comes to the classroom, and more focused on the things that they need to get finished. So I think that the conversation about research and the pressing need for professors to publish those type of publications is necessary as well.
Okay, so professors being kind of divided between like research role and teaching role, and maybe their main focus isn't the teaching role. That's a big problem right now.
Exactly.
Then, Mara, so you said that you don't have a lot of knowledge into how university departments work, but what are problems you see in your own school that you've been researching?
Yes, I wanted to raise, with regards to the previous idea, with regards to the employment part, the private sector and the education sector. I've done some research in these two fields, so I can talk more about this right now. So what I've realized at Simon Dawson College, which is very renowned for entrepreneurship and for empowering students to start their own businesses, but even here I think that's a general mentality that you need to get a job. So it's not a fear, but it's a concern of students in general, like in any other school, about getting a job and getting employed. And I think that one main challenge with regards to this is I think that we have two bubbles that are not at all connected. So we have the universities who assume that employers need all kinds of skills, so have all kinds of expectations. So they do their best in empowering students to get those. And we have the employers who have some of the times other expectations and other requirements for the students. I don't see enough collaboration between universities and employments. And the only collaboration that I've seen so far in my college was like internship fairs or career centers in which they kind of tell you how companies work and what their expectations would be. But what I would want employers to do is to better understand the actual curriculum that the students go through, and the universities to better understand what employers and employees actually have to do. So it would be like we would have to create a discussion between these two fields. That's what I feel like. I feel there is a gap, that it's unfilled, and there are a lot of assumptions that limit students and also the employers and the job creation. That's one of the things that I wanted to raise.
Okay, so yeah, definitely a disconnect between like the job market and kind of like the ivory tower of universities.
Yeah, I think Danielle has a really interesting point to speak to that from the chat. Do you want to expand on your point about internships, Danielle?
Sure. So I feel like when you speak about employers and schools being a little siloed, one thing that I read employers are really looking for is relevant work experience. And a great way to get that is an internship when you're not yet quite qualified, you want to learn, you want to add actually to your education. I feel like universities could go a lot farther in supporting that. For example, mine, you can get credit, college credit, but it doesn't go towards your degree. So it counts as like a GE, but I feel like, once you're at a higher level in your college, you might not need GE anymore. So they've made it kind of valueless. And if they could incorporate that some more, I think that would give employers more prepared candidates out of college students.
Cool. I mean, so I've done a couple of internships like during my degree, and I find that it's really useful to be able to apply these kind of skills to, you know, real life problems, right? I'm of the opinion that more people should do more internships. So I don't know. I mean, how do we think we can get students and employees and employers linked in a way that makes sense for internships being valuable for both companies and for students and for universities? I don't know, does anybody, especially business students, anybody have something to say kind of in response to
Mara,
that?
you were raising your hand.
Yes, I was raising my hand, but before, so it was not a response to what Rosie.
That's fine, go for it.
I don't have a response. That's an interesting discussion. I don't have a response to that. But so apart from internships, what I think is usually considered by students as beneficial for their future jobs is getting a concentration or a major in a very specific field, which is another question that I have a discussion that I would like to start, how effective these majors and concentrations are in the context of workforce and in the context of these huge exponential advances that we do. So the jobs that we'll see tomorrow don't exist today, and we'll need to take those jobs. So I'm majoring in something that exists today, but tomorrow I will have a completely different job. So how much does that help me? Because this is what employers tell us right now. Oh, we want you to major in financial accounting if you want to be a financial accountant. But by the time I will graduate, maybe this won't exist anymore. So it's like, so far, the two main things that students consider the most effective are getting internships and majoring in that specific field. And I'm also wondering how effective these strategies are.
Yeah. Especially in the age of like artificial intelligence, where a ton of jobs are going to be replaced. So we could be learning completely like obsolete skills. But Matt, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I think one important thing to remember too is that I think it's somewhere around 70% of individuals do not actually get a job within their major or end up in a job within their major. And so I think that's where we can take a step back and look at that principle of gaining very, very widely applicable skills. But also too, when we're considering a major in a deeper concentration, maybe for a deeper understanding of a specific concentration, I think it's somewhere between 50 and 60% of students will change their major at least once. And by major, that's not even like going from, biochemistry to a different form of chemistry. I'm not a chemistry major, I have no idea. But that's like going from literature to physics. So two completely different fields altogether. And that's over half the students. And so I don't think that there's necessarily that room to be able to look deeply for most students. And so that's where the skills come in and the integration of internships.
Yeah, so I think we're naturally moving towards big question 2. How do we go about solving these challenges that we've come up with? So we've identified things like, a disconnect between students and what students are learning and employers, and we've identified disconnects between the enrollment needs and the labor market, and we've identified research issues. How can research universities be student-centered? There's some great stuff going on in the chat if people don't have the chat open. So how do we move towards solving these issues, right? How can we create connectivity between curriculum and students and employers, and is that important? And what do you guys think?
Erica?
I think that something that is also kind of contributing to this problem is I think a lot of institutions of higher ed, at least that I've noticed, are really closed off to working with outside organizations, kind of in a number of ways. I think Georgetown has a really good career services, so they'll bring in a ton of people to do career fairs and stuff like that. But even on like a project level, I think there's a huge resistance for faculty and for staff. The thing I hear most from professors is like, oh, banking, as like it's a bad thing, and like, oh my gosh, like the humanities can never touch banking. Like those are completely, but there's so many places where I think there are important synergies that we're not tapping into, where, for-profit companies can really do a lot for students, and students can do a lot for the for-profit companies, and the institution can benefit as well. But I don't necessarily know. I don't have experience working with that because Georgetown's really closed off to that sort of stuff. So for the most part, I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that sort of work.
I think it's important to make a little bit of a distinction here between what I look at as sort of specific applications of knowledge versus the process of actually applying knowledge. And I think that sort of sums up a little bit of what we've been discussing with the skills that schools teach versus the skills that employers are looking for. If you go to a computer science institution, you're looking at complex, high-level computer science theory. But when you actually go into the job market, you're looking at software engineering and software development, where you're applying that knowledge in a much different way than how the applications of that knowledge are taught in school. And so working with businesses in the form of internships, in the form of volunteering, in the form of open source projects, to give students experience in the applying of the knowledge as opposed to just the applications of the knowledge, I think is something that's very, very valuable, and something that's proven very, very valuable for me in my education so far.
Okay, so a big solution to a lot of the problems we've been talking about, we've kind of come to maybe like internships and work as kind of a requirement to get a degree, perhaps. And then Cindy?
Doesn't that, if we place so much focus on like learning in only like work-related environments, doesn't that undermine like the entire value of higher education itself? There should be a way that like there should be a way. I mean, okay, so if you're asking like students to just like go into the job market, like with the skills and knowledge that they have at the moment, I think yes, that's a very effective way to get them to learn and on a very like steep learning curve. But at the same time, like doesn't that just don't actually need a higher education degree to get along? If we could just learn similarly from internships, so how could we like apply the concept of an internship, learning on the spot, and like real life applications, and put that within a higher education context itself, instead of like looking outside of it and like encouraging students to do external things besides higher education that perhaps they don't even need.
Christian, you haven't spoken yet. Do you have anything to say to that?
Like a thought I had is about my school. So I go to Sciences Po, and that's it's a school in France, and it's kind of where most of the politicians go. Like, for example, the last 6 presidents went to the school. So most people will go into diplomacy or politics afterwards. And my school actually requires us to do an internship in a field that's not related to anything that we are studying, which is kind of like the exact opposite of what we're talking about. And as I'm like in the moment like applying to one of those like internships, I'm like questioning whether it's like something that's effective or not. And kind of the reason they give for it is that as most people move into like decision-making positions, they want you to have also like a perspective from another point of view than just the subject you're studying. But at the same time, I feel like most people actually don't take away anything from it, because then they just like do the 6 weeks somewhere, and then they just like kind of forget about it. So I'm questioning whether it's also important, to not just have a perspective into into your subject that you're studying, but also again how important this interconnectors is, not just on the level of study, but also then on the level of experience, like actual work experience.
So you're kind of questioning the value of work experience. What have you seen like?
Yeah, not just
a
work
better way.
Not just of work experience, but also whether it kind of connects also to what was said previously that the work experience we gain now doing our studies might not be actually applicable once we are finished with our studies and actually qualify for the proper job. So should it even like important that we do those internships in the fields of our studies, or is it just like the work experience itself that is already like helping us move forward? I think that in some sense it's less the actual skills themselves and more sort of like a level of meta learning, of learning how to learn as you go, learning how to adapt to a new situation, how to learn new skills that you need while you're on the job. I'm not sure that it's necessarily if you want to be a software developer or software engineer when you graduate that you need a software engineering internship, but more so some sort of practice in figuring out how to figure things out. School is really, really great at assessing our ability to memorize and recite information. But what employers are largely looking for, because what the world needs, is people who are able to take some complex problem that doesn't actually have a solution, doesn't have a discrete set of steps for solving it, and then figure out how to arrive at a solution for that. So I think that's what we get a lot of in internships that we don't see a lot of in school. And I think that's probably what is one of the most valuable things about it.
So I kind of want to bring up a question from that we'll kind of discuss further in some other sessions where it comes to like data and education, and that's like how do we measure learning how to learn? Because you can like you said, schools are really good at knowing if you memorize something because that's very easily measurable. But how do you gauge that someone kind of grew as a person, like in abstract sense?
I'd argue that you probably can't. And I know that's not the answer that we want to hear. Like we want to be able to say, oh yeah, we know we can measure it, we can apply this framework and know that this person grew this much. But I think that's something that's innately human and not something that we can necessarily put a number on. We can't put a grade on it. We can't say, all right, you have the ability to learn how to learn, and therefore you have a 94%. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And then how do we design a program? Like what would be the ideal program? How would we design that if we have no way of measuring that? That's the big challenge, I guess. Anyone have any thoughts on how you design a program like that?
I think that might also be where sort of like project-based learning comes in, where instead of graduating with, oh, I have a 4.1, I have a portfolio of really interesting things that I've built, interesting projects that I've worked on with other people, problems that I've actually solved, even though I didn't have training in how to solve them. And I think that probably has much greater bearing for your future ability to create value for the world and help better other people's lives than a report card with 6 letters on it.
That's so
and
legit.
Erica, you were raising. Okay, a couple people are raising their hands. Erica.
Oh, I put it in the chat, but I was just gonna say that's really interesting. But something I've noticed is I think there are a lot of precedents in K through 12 that are looking at kind of socio-emotional learning and learning to learn, and the kind of growth mindset model is a huge thing when we're talking about K through 12 education and teaching kids not just to memorize, but to have a growth mindset of I can change, I can expand, and I think there are some ways that they've started to measure that, but I would need to look into it more. But I feel like that hasn't quite. I think people think once people get to college, they kind of get it. But I think there's a lot more research that could be done there.
And then Mara, yes.
So I wanted to mention with regards to the project-based learning and not that much theory in schools. I think also employers and the private sector has a responsibility in this whole process because their requirements, if you took on job requirements, is you need that degree, you need to have majored in that or that or that. So all these requirements are so based on theoretical knowledge and none of them say. So very few companies get you at an interview and they give you a technical interview like Google does it. If you get that done, even though you studied biology, but if you emphasize more how project-based learning is useful by getting the candidates through some actual challenges, applying things not only theoretical, looking through their CVs on their degrees and everything. Because once their requirements are those, the education system adapts to those requirements because all the universities want to get their students employed, so they focus on theory and not on practice. I think it should be, again, that collaboration between the employers and the schools with regards to their requirements and their practices.
Danielle, did you have something cool to say?
Nothing in particular. I just threw on there an agreement with project-based learning. And we're kind of getting into the area of how do we measure this, and I was kind of wondering if anyone here has made yet a portfolio or any other collection of displaying your work when you're like, okay, I had this problem or this opportunity. Here's how I embraced it.
I have a really shitty portfolio. It does exist. It is there. It's yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, stuff that I have in my portfolio is not usually stuff that I've done through school, right? So it's stuff like this. Like this is a feature on my portfolio, and designing internship programs for big companies and data science projects and stuff are all parts of it's a place that I send potential employers a lot because and they love it, and it's very much like a talking point in an interview where they can see that you've done something cool and something worthwhile with your time. I mean, so my I have a friend at another university who's like a big part of her degree program is a portfolio. So she has to create this like huge portfolio full of independent projects that she's done, and that is super cool. And she has to write things about how, what she's learned from each project and how that project like developed her mental capacities for learning new things and how she applied skills that she learned at university in the real world. I don't know. I mean, do we think that portfolio project-based degree programs could be a really interesting supplement to theoretical teaching? Cindy?
So I think one problem with extreme flexibility in project-based learning is that we tend to lose objectivity and standardizing of these of college and higher education, right? But I think we can argue what is the point of standardizing? But I still think that there need to be an objective criteria to judge the relative successes and to give feedback on these projects and to not necessarily grade them, but to grade them in terms of how well students have demonstrated their ability, how well they've progressed throughout the project. And I think that an objective criteria is definitely necessary because I think all these projects will, in a theoretical situation where a school operated on this basis, definitely students projects will be all over the place. They'll come from different industries and they'll incorporate different ideas. But if you don't have a way to assess them and a concrete way to give feedback and to systematize that feedback, then I think a lot of value will be lost there in terms of how employers will view the success of these projects.
Simeon, do you want to expand on your point from the chat?
Okay. So I think the project-based learning really hit the nail on the head. I think because but there's also the second answer to the issue is that so you can have project-based learning, you can design sort of outcomes for that, but what then needs to be done is you need to communicate with the employer that the person has and concrete set of skills, because the thing is that employers often they take a risk when they hire you, so they want to be absolutely sure that you have 100% have the skills that to have, right? So, all right, so that's my fault. So that's why they basically go for that's why they still see for degrees. That's why that. So I think so. Let's say like a finance degree or finance major. So I'm doing my honours here. I'm doing a thesis in electricity markets, and basically, in spite of the fact that I didn't do finance, my supervisor basically said that most of the finance theories that you learn are basically like they're wrong, and they inapplicable when you try to actually design an electricity market. So that kind of shows you sort of the utility of that sort of theory. At the same time, right? Sorry, I think this rambled for about 2 minutes.
You're making complete.
All right. So what I'm saying essentially is that you can have project-based learning, but you need to probably design and use a set of credentialing standards that can give employers the same certainty that you have the skills as you would a normal degree. Because like there is a risk here, and if you design a business, you actually implement this project-based learning, you have to convince an employer that what you've done is good. Like if that they can trust you. If they don't, then they it won't be good on their part. Yeah, that's basically all I want to say.
Yeah, so we still need a way of knowing or like letting employers know that we have a certain skill. And a couple of kids in the chat have been talking about micro-credentialing. Can someone expand on that?
Matt, do you want to expand on that one?
I know MIT has a good, or they're experimenting with micro-credentialing right now. It looks like Northeastern has one. Matt, go ahead.
So I think the idea with micro-credentialing is looking more towards, again, this skill-based education. Well, one thing that I was saying about it is, an extension of that could be, which whatever implements, competency-based education. Because there's really no point wherever you're, complete in your studies. You can always learn more. And like I put in the chat, on the flip side, you can always be a little bit dumber. And so that's why I think it's really important to have like these individual skills on a range, not where you necessarily meet, okay, you've met all the requirements for, quantitative modeling, take that, and then you're done, or you have that credential, is where it's a very cumulative experience in something that more concretely measures where you're at rather than necessarily what you've achieved. Because just learning a couple new facts about a certain skill, just, at what point do we draw the arbitrary line of you're good enough or you're not good
enough? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads us in our last kind of 15 minutes to the last big question that we had, which was, what are some revolutionary examples of higher education models? We're going to talk about Minerva for a couple of minutes, but would anybody like to talk about a model that they found that is not Minerva, for cool models of revolutionary higher ed?
Christian?
Yeah, Erica.
Yeah, so there's this college. It's very new. It's called Watson College. It's in Colorado, and you actually apply to the college with the program, with the project. So like you already have an idea, kind of like potential entrepreneurial project you would like to execute. And so it's like an entrepreneurial school, and then there's either like a semester program, so you only go there for a semester, or there's also like a degree program. I think it's for 3 years, and you actually get a bachelor's degree. But essentially, you're like coached on realizing your project. But kind of like adding on to what we said earlier, that there still have to be like measures on ensuring that certain skills were learned. You still have to take classes at like a partner school. I think it's some college in Miami. But yeah, so like essentially, what I think is very cool is that come like with the intention of realizing this project while you are in your degree, and then you kind of get the support, and you kind of it's also offers like really great financial aid. So yeah, it's something pretty cool, I think.
Cool.
Okay.
Erica, did you have an example?
When we were talking about socio-emotional learning, I thought there's a program at Stanford called the Resilience Project that is really interesting. It's a very small project in Stanford, but it's all about kind of teaching students that it's okay to fail. And I think that just kind of reminded me of the conversation we were having around kind of these soft skills and learning empathy and stuff like that, because you have people going up on stage talking about resilience and grit and how they kind of failed in certain aspects of their education, which I think can be a good message to hear.
Cool.
Agreed. So as far as like other revolutionary models, did anyone else find something cool? Matt?
Yeah, one interesting model, which is something that I applied to when I was in college, is Deep Springs. I'm sure at least a couple of us have heard that. Where it's basically a student democracy. The students determine what's taught. Or, wow, that was bad. What is taught? What professors are hired, what goes on at the school, and then the part of it too is that it's only a 2-year program, and the students are filtered into more traditional education. But all the while they are working on this ranch in the middle of nowhere, and so it creates a really insular and tight-knit group working together. Really teaching teamwork in a collaborative fashion.
Sweet.
Cool. That's interesting. And then Bradley, you linked us to something. Does your microphone work? Can you explain it?
Is it connected to it all?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah, so one of the schools that I was applied to transfer to is Northeastern, and they do a co-op, and among other things, they're really big into innovative learning. But the whole aspect of their business school is where they put you in positions where you're going to actually be doing whatever work you're learning. So, for instance, finance, like, I have a lot of professional experience in finance, but I have no finance degree. And I've gone as far as doing audits for other companies. But when I come to do accounting class, like, I'm somewhat clueless on some of the stuff they're out there. So this kind of helps to bridge that gap between the two, where the academia aspect of it is actually somewhat in line with the professional aspect.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And then, Erica, did you have a cool example of something within a university?
Sorry, what was that?
Did you have an example of something within a traditional university?
Oh yeah, well, the program that I work with, the Futures Initiative, is I think really interesting because it's trying to create change in the way that we structure our courses, and it's actually a directive out of the provost's office, which I think is really rare. I don't know if there are other institutions that are kind of like traditional four-year institutions that do that and also involve students in curricular design. But for me, that's been both a worthwhile and problematic model. Worthwhile because it's really cool to say that I get to help create a class that students are going to take and be the student voice, but at the same time, the bureaucratic procedures that we have to go through are just insane. Getting a course passed is one of the most frustrating processes I think I've ever been through at a university. So I think there's kind of this dichotomy between does change come from the outside in or the inside out?
That's
and in the chat. Okay.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Oh, I was in the chat. There's Amanda was just saying, if you guys haven't had a chance to say, is that she thinks that kind of inside out is the preferred way. I tend to agree with that because there's already such a large institution at play, and everyone kind of looks to these large universities for higher education. So changing the institution is better than kind of trying to reinvent a whole new institution. The way I see it, but I could totally be wrong. And we have about 8 minutes left, and we do have to talk about Minerva, and the reason why is that everyone gets too curious about Minerva, and then it ends up dominating every other discussion that we ever have. So, Rosie, do you want to start up on that?
Yeah, so, and yeah, it has definitely in the past dominated, and we're going to avoid that. We're going to avoid that hard. But, yeah, so Minerva is this very cool, brand new university that Matt and I are part of the founding class, the part of the first class, and Cindy is in the class of 2020, and it's really cool because of two main things. So the first thing is that all of our academics are based on a really amazing online platform, which is like Google Hangouts, but super like souped up. It's absolutely amazing. I was trying to plan this session, and I put on our Minerva group, like, it is so difficult to plan a class outside of the platform. Like, there's no interactive polling, you can't integrate a Google Doc, you can't do anything. I don't understand how people do it, which I guess is why there's less live online school going on. And the cool thing is that Minerva allows, the online model allows us to travel a lot. So we have a 7-city global rotation. So we all live together in residence halls in 7 different cities across the world. So at the moment, Matt and I are in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Cindy is in San Francisco. Our other cities are Berlin, Seoul, Hyderabad, London, and Taipei. So it's a really cool variety of cities. We get some amazing professors because they can teach from anywhere, and so they get to take part in designing a brand new curriculum for a brand new university. Our kind of 4 pillars are critical thinking, creative thinking, interacting effectively, and communicating effectively. So everything that we do is surrounded by these 4 things, these skills and habits of mind that we're supposed to really internalize and apply to everything that we do, which is great for when we're doing internships or whatever, and we get to really apply these hard skills that we learn in school. And those skills are everything from like conditional probability to word choice when writing. There are all kinds of things that it's about 120 of them that get all piled into our heads. So I like it. It's pretty intense. It's very cool.
Okay, so that is what Minerva is, so that you have like a reference for when we inevitably like bring up Minerva in the future, or someone says that they're from Minerva or whatever. For the last 5 minutes, we can just kind of wrap it up. We've talked about a lot of really interesting stuff today, from problems in education being prescriptive to lack of interdisciplinary fields, or lack of collaboration between employers and the school. And probably what would be the best step for you to do like immediately after this is to start kind of writing and like wrapping up some, or like just jotting down some thoughts on it, because the article will be coming up, or like whatever medium you want to use will be coming up and due soon. When is that, Rosie? When is that due?
I want to say 17th of February.
Okay, so it would be good to kind of like, now that you have all this like creativity and you have all of these ideas in your mind, maybe jot down some thoughts of what you want to start writing about, and yeah, just start working on that. Any other wrapping thoughts?
Cool. I just want to say it as well. So next session is about online education. So you'll be getting the information and the kind of pre-class readings for that on Monday, like we did this week. I'm going to be getting the whole curriculum to you in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so that's in the works. It's pretty well formulated so far. So yeah.
Okay, and I do want to take these. If anyone has any thoughts on how we can improve this, does everyone think this went well? Is there places where things could be improved? What do we think? Yeah, Cindy?
I just want...
Oh, Simeon?
Yeah, Cindy, go first. Sorry.
So I think that if we had like an objective for each session, so like, what do we want to achieve by today? Like, do we want to achieve consensus or a list of like things that we've agreed upon or like we disagreed about? I think that would make the sessions more productive, because then we would know like when to diverge and when to go back to like what our main focal points are, and what our goals and like the learning objectives or like project yeah.
Okay, that is a great point, because right now me and Rosie have like we can see the objectives that we wanted to get out of like the sessions, but you guys can't see them right now. So in the future, we'll start beforehand sending you kind of what we want what direction we want the sessions to go to. Okay, and then Simeon?
Right, I think also a list of, I guess links to, insert interest articles just to make us think. So,
Okay.
I mean, I come to, because there might be areas where I'm not really well versed in, or things where, I just might want to read a little bit first, just sort of get some understanding. So, if you can sort of, I guess, curate some, thought-provoking links that can actually help us think, that might help a little bit, in discussion quality.
That is a great idea. That's something I've been thinking about too, is kind of using articles or other perspectives as kind of like a tipping off point or like a shooting off point for our own discussions. So that's kind of what we are going to start using the Facebook group for. So Rosie and I will start curating stuff and trying to send it to you, but also make sure that if you find an interesting article that kind of relates to what we're talking about, just put it in the Facebook, and then we'll have a conversation about it there, and then talk about it in the discussions as well. Does anyone else have any things that can go better? Erica?
It might be cool to just have brief statements about the kind of schools that we're all in, just so, because I know we introduced that, but it'd be helpful for me to be able to kind of locate people in their institutions a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm going to try to compile with the Medium article that I'm going to write with all of your bios. So I'll go ahead and collect that hopefully this weekend, and then try to make sure that there's what kind of school you're at, or what your experience is, so that we kind of know where everyone's coming from. Okay.
Yeah. So if you haven't sent your bio to Ali yet, then you should do that. That would be great.
And I will try to compile that as soon as I can. And anyone else? These are all really good points. Okay. Well, I guess that's that. If you have anything that you want to say, anything that could have gone better, if you really like something, and you want to tell me about it, just email me. You guys have my email, and I guess that's that. I'll see you guys next time. Really good talk, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, bye. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Thank you.
So, Rosie, were you able to record that?
Yeah, I think I did. I think that worked. So I'll check and see if the audio worked. But yeah, it should have.
Okay, I really like that.
Yeah, I think that went well. They warmed up. Yeah, they warmed up and it went well.
Yeah, because a lot of the times in our last quarters, there was just some really blank spots where no one was talking, and I think and all of the points that they made are really good. So we'll start giving them the objectives, and I'll get the bio set up, and okay. See you next time.
Sweet. See you later. Bye.